All right, ladies and gentlemen and raster designers and anybody who wants to learn how to retouch a photo in Photoshop, here we go. All right, we're going to do retouch in Photoshop, and we're going to get started with part one, Maui. We're going to make a picture look like this. All right, answer these questions. So I want you to make sure that you do this. Make sure that you go into your folder with your name on it. Make sure you have a folder called Creative Computers. I have mine's called 13, but you don't have to do that. You're going to have Raster Design Photoshop inside there. You're going to have Retouch in Photoshop, make that folder, and then you're going to have your Assets Retouching. And inside there, you're going to have the Maui Original. Okay, so the Maui Original.jpg. So that's what we're going to open. So you're going to go like this. You're going to go File, Open, and you're going to open up that JPG, and I'm going to go ahead and hit open. Okay, and then we're going to go File, and we're going to say Save As. Okay, and so we're going to say Maui Retouch, and we're going to get rid of the JPEG because we do not want to save it as a JPEG. Instead, we want to save it as a PSD, a Photoshop document. Now, don't hit save. Don't hit save. This is not an asset. This is the main project. So we're gonna save it as Maui Retouch. We're gonna save it as Maui Retouch. Make sure you do that because the reason we save it as a Photoshop document because we're gonna use all these tools. They're not tools. What are these things called? We're going to have all these adjustment layers over here. We're going to use all these tools over here, right? And all that stuff gets saved better into a Photoshop document than it would a JPEG. So make sure you do that. All right, at this point, let's jump over here to our scoring guide. We've done all this so far. Okay, so what is the process for retouching a photo? Okay, so we have this question here. What is the process? And then the next question is, why do we follow this order of steps? Okay, so here's what we do. We basically open a photo and we save it as a Photoshop document. We just did. Step 2 is we crop it. Step 3 is we do color correction. Step 4 is we copy and flatten all of our work into a single layer. And then using that single layer, we do an exposure adjustment in the camera raw filter. Then we do noise reduction in the camera raw filter. And then once we have all that done, we export our Photoshop document back to a JPEG or a PNG. Okay, so that is the order. And then why do we follow this order? So basically, there's different orders out there. If you follow different tutorials, they're going to tell you some different ways. But this is a way that works pretty good, where it's quick, it's efficient, it hits the basics, and like I guess the main thing is that sometimes if you do it out of order, like one thing you did over here, later on something you do, it's not going to work with it. So this is kind of a productive order in which your future work's not going to mess up your previous work, if that makes any sense. Okay, write that down. Write that down on your notes in here. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to do is crop the photos that the bottom footprint lies in the PowerPoint. All right, so we're ready to actually get started here. So let's do this. So we're going to come first to the crop tool. And so we click on that tool and we click in here, and you can see it's like, oh, sweet, it has the PowerPoints. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out like, oh, how do we get that bottom foot into the PowerPoint? It's like, it doesn't work very good because if we got the foot in the PowerPoint, we're going to lose the sky, and that's not very good. And if we try to stretch it out, it all of a sudden gets out of the PowerPoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something like this. We're going to stretch it outside of here. So we're going to do something kind of more like this, and like maybe something like that is good. Okay, all right. So once we get it set, and normally you're gonna reduce stuff. In this case, we're adding stuff. But at any rate, so we're cropping out some of the boring stuff. We're going to hit enter, And no, enter doesn't work. We're going to hit done. Okay, and so this is good. We have this thing in the PowerPoint. Now the problem is we have some like blank spaces over here, but we're going to figure that out in a second. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a tool over here. So you're going to click over here. There's a spot healing brush, the remove tool, the healing brush tool, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go with the remove tool, and it looks like there's like a pretty small brush. So we're going to increase the brush size right there. And normally, I think I only have one layer. Let's see what I have. Yeah, I just have one background layer, so we don't have to worry about what layer we're on. But anyway, we're going to go back to this tool, and there's these dirt clods, and I'm just going to highlight these dirt clods all around it. And I'm going to wait, and it basically figures out like, oh, he wants to get rid of that dirt clod, and it filled it in. Now, by the way, so the dirt clod is gone forever. So I just destroyed the dirt clod. So if you want that dirt clod back, you're going to have to press Control and Z to get it back. But this is destructive editing. Sometimes you do destructive editing, but you want to destroy stuff as little as possible. We're going to talk more about destructive versus non-destructive editing in a second. So we're going to get rid of that dirt clod right there. Okay, so it figured out, what does he want? And it just figures out like, okay, so I think that's good enough. We got rid of the dirt clods. Now, we're going to use that tool to do something a little weird. So we're going to click right. Oh, actually, I'm going to hit cancel. So I'm going to make my brush size a little bigger. So we're going to make it like 60. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to see what happens if I'm like, hey, I want to get rid of this white. What are you going to do for me if I try to get rid of this white area right here? So I'm going to click and drag. There's other ways to do it. There's another tool that will do this, the generative AI, but it's not working for us right now. So anyway, we'll try this. Okay, so let's see what it does. So what it should do is try to fill in the blanks. It's like, okay, well, I think he wants some more sand here. So it's going to fill in the blanks with some sand. Let's see how it goes. Okay, and it did an okay job. Not wonderful, but it's good enough for this. What we're going to do is later on we'll do a vignette thing. We'll darken this area so it kind of hides it. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing over here. Okay, and then I'm going to hit pause so you don't have to watch it do it. Okay, and you can see again, it wasn't amazing, but it did a pretty decent job. Now, I still got some white stuff in here, so I'm going to go back to my crop tool. Oop, that's not it. Go back to my crop tool, click, and I'm going to crop out that white there, and crop out that white there, and good enough. I'm going to hit done, and we're going to crop that out. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. Let's see what's next on the list here. Okay, so the next thing is, okay, what's the difference between destructive and non-destructive editing? When you destroy something, you can't get it back. Non-destructive means like you never really destroyed any of your original work, and you can always get back easily. And we'll look at that some more. All right, let's do some color correction. So let's create a hue saturation adjustment layer for the overall picture. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to move my head, and down here there is the adjustment layers, and we're going to create a new hue saturation. All right. So overall, I want you to play with this how you want, and so you can give it like a little bit more of a blue tone, or a little bit more of a red tone. I'm going to do something like that. Okay. And the other thing, so I kind of like it like that. The other thing that you can do on this layer right here is that you can tone the whole thing down. So you can say, I want it to be totally see-through or totally opaque. But the thing here is where it's not destructive is those changes are not permanent. It's basically all contained in this one adjustment layer, and I can turn it on or I can turn it off. Okay? All right. So now what we're going to do, let's go back to my spiel here. Not my spiel. Let's go back to my scoring guide. The next thing I want to do is create a hue saturation adjustment layer with a mask that it only affects the sky, and name this layer sky only. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make another hue adjustment layer, and what we're going to do is, so we're going to ignore the ignore the sand. We're going to just do just the sky. So on the sky, I'm going to do it, I want it to be a little bit more red. So something a little bit more, yeah. So something like that. Okay, so give it a little bit of more pop. And let's play around with the saturation here. So we'll turn that up, and then we'll play around with the light and darkness. Again, we're just looking at the sky. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now is I like what it's done with the sky. I do not like what it's done with the sand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this mask here, and anything you paint with black it's gonna hide it. Okay, so I am going to go to my, so let's do this just to show you. So if I go here and I go with, and I paint with black, where's the brush? And I'm going to go with a nice big fuzzy, so it's not very hard, it's fuzzy. So you can see it's fuzzy on the outline. I'm going to press Control Z, because I don't want to do it there. What I am going to do is I'm going to do it right there in that mask. Okay, and so you can see that wherever I paint with the black, I'm going to make my brush bigger. Wherever I paint with black, it does not affect it, right? So I'm blocking out that adjustment layer. And so I'm going to go here and something like that. Okay, all right, so it's just affecting the sky. So let's turn that on and off. Okay, we can turn it on and off, and then we can play around with the opacity, like how much do I really want that? And I like it like that. Okay, anyway, so you do something like that as well. Let's go back to the scoring guide, see where we're at. Okay, all right, create a levels adjustment layer, and then we're going to create a curves layer. All right, let's go back. Okay, so we're going to go here, and we're going to go to the levels. Okay, and on the levels, it's basically, do you have like crisp whites and deep blacks? And you can see this represents the blacks. So it makes it a little bit more interesting if you go here, and let's see. Yeah, I kind of like that. And then these are the midtones, kind of like that. Okay, so we've adjusted the levels, and then the last thing we're going to do is adjust the curves. So I'm just going to have you do it and play with it a little bit right now. I don't want to go into the details of it, but curves are real powerful. So what you can do is, oftentimes it looks nice if you do an S curve. So I'm going to go like this. So we're basically adjusting the lights and the darks on here. So I kind of like that. So do a little, what does this look like if we do that? Oh, that looks kind of neat. So play around with it, get it where you like it in some sort of S curve fashion. I like that. Yeah, you play around with it how you want. Okay, so it's looking good. It's looking good. So let's take a look at where we're at on the scoring guide here. So we've saved it as a Photoshop document. We've cropped it. We've done color correction. And so now it's time to flatten all of your work into a single layer. So select all of your layers and then press Control-Alt-Shift-E. 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 So we're going to come over here to our layers, and we're going to hit Shift. And so we've selected all of them. And then on the keyboard, I'm going to press Control and Alt and Shift and E. Okay, and so it's taken all of that stuff and put it into one layer. Okay, so if I turn all this stuff off, I can, because it's all contained on this one layer. Okay, and so I'm going to name this layer, what am I supposed to name? I'm supposed to name it something specific. I better look at the scoring guide. I'm going to rename this. What am I supposed to rename it? I don't know. I'm supposed to rename it Maui Flattened. Okay. Okay, so basically I took all that stuff and I flattened it all into one new layer. Okay, so now that now I take all this work that I've done, and with it, I'm going to go up here to Filter, and I'm going to do a Camera Raw filter. Now, this works really well if you're shooting in Camera Raw, which I'm not going to go into. But if you're like a professional photographer, you're going to probably shoot in Camera Raw. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is you can play around with all this stuff, but let's see here. So you can play. I mean, you can come around and play with whatever you want. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a vignette, because it makes it a little bit more dramatic, and we kind of want to hide some of this stuff. So do a little bit of a vignette. And what else are we going to do? I'm going to hit Alt-Tab and go back to my... No, I guess I'm not. Okay, so we're going to do... Okay, add a vignette and smooth the texture. Okay, so we're going to smooth the texture on it. Okay, so texture. So we're going to smooth. So that makes it more gritty. We're going to make it a little bit less gritty. And not that much, just a little bit less gritty. Okay, and on different pictures, this is going to have a way different effect. Okay, and then we're going to do some noise reduction on the Maui Flattened. We just did that. Oh no, noise reduction, and then noise reduction under detail. Okay, so now we're going to go under detail, and you can play around with sharpening and noise reduction. So we're going to go like that, and it kind of smooths it out. Okay, so this is destructive editing. We can't get this back, but it's okay because we did it on our Maui Flattened. Okay, so there it is. So now we're done with the picture, and so now that we've done everything we have in Photoshop, we're going to go File, Save, and click OK. And then we're going to export it back as either a JPEG or PNG. So I'm going to go Export, Export As, and again, this does not go into okay, so we're going to export it as a PNG. You can change everything if you want, but we're just going to go ahead and export it. And we're going to make sure that it's not an asset, so we're not going to save it there. It's just going to go here, and so we're going to say Maui, and we're going to call it and we're going to hit save. Maui finished.png or .jpg. Okay. All right, and that is it for part one. After this, we're going to do for this assignment, we're going to do another picture, and so that's going to be on a separate video.